If you're a project manager, let's be real, conflict isn't just a possibility on your projects, it's practically a guarantee. But what if dealing with it wasn't about being a firefighter who just puts out flames? What if it was about being a detective who understands the science of the fire? Today, we're going to explore how the skill of interpretation is the key to not just managing conflict, but actually using it to make your project better. So let's start by totally reframing how we even think about this stuff. First things first, we've got to ditch the old way of thinking. The old school view you see on the left there. It treats conflict like it's a virus, something dysfunctional that you need to avoid at all costs, and it's always blamed on someone's personality. But that's not how we see it anymore. The modern view, the one we actually use in project management, is totally different. It says, hey, conflict is gonna happen. It's an inevitable part of smart, passionate people working together. And, get this, it can actually be a good thing. So, if we accept that conflict is just part of the game, our first job as an interpreter is to ask the most important question. Why is this really happening? We've got to look under the hood and find the true source of the problem. Okay, so take a second. Just think about it. What's the number one reason people butt heads on a project? What's your gut tell you? Is it money, egos, technical disagreements? You might be surprised by the real answer. Okay, check this out. Research shows the number one cause, the top of the list, is schedules. Yep, disagreements over timelines. Right behind that, you've got project priorities and fighting over resources. But now, look all the way down at the bottom, all the way down at number 7, personality. The one thing we all love to blame first is actually the least frequent cause of conflict on a project. Isn't that wild? And that leads to a massive takeaway. It means that when things get tense, our first thought shouldn't be, oh, those two just don't get along. No, it's almost always about the work itself, the schedule, the priorities, the procedures. So your job isn't to fix the people, it's to fix the process. The conflict only starts to feel personal when those real structural root causes are ignored. All right, so once we have a good idea of why the conflict is happening, our next big interpretive question is this. How far along is it? You gotta know the stage of the conflict to really understand its intensity and what's going on. And a brilliant tool for this is Tuckman's ladder of team development. You've probably seen this before. Teams don't just magically become great. They move through these stages. And believe it or not, conflict has its own special, dedicated, and totally normal phase right in the model. It's called the storming phase, and this is where disagreements aren't just likely, they are expected. It's how the team actually works things out. They challenge ideas, they argue about technical decisions, and they figure out who's who in the zoo. It can feel a little messy, a little chaotic, but it's an absolutely necessary step for a team to eventually start performing. And here's the kicker. Even a high-performing team can get thrown right back into storming if a big change or a new stressor comes along. And speaking of change, the Satir Change Model gives us an even closer look. It shows us that when some kind of foreign element, a big disruptive change hits the project, it's totally natural for performance to dip as the team enters a period of, chaos. Now that word, chaos, it sounds pretty bad, right? And it's true. This is where team performance often hits rock bottom because everything feels unfamiliar and unstable. But here's the amazing insight. Chaos is also where creativity is born. That friction and confusion force the team to desperately search for a transforming idea, a brand new way of looking at things that finally allows them to move forward. So, we've looked at the source and the stage. This brings us to your most active role as a project manager, putting on your analyst hat and using your soft skills to figure out what's happening right in front of you. One of the very first things you have to interpret is the kind of conversation people are having. Are they in a debate? Where it's a win-lose battle and everyone's just trying to prove they're right? Or are they in a dialogue, where the goal is to work together, listen to each other, and find the best possible solution for the project? Your job is to shut down the debate and open up the dialogue. And while you're doing that, you're constantly analyzing the context. You're asking yourself 4 things. 1, how important is this issue really? That tells you how much time to spend on it. 2, how quickly do we need an answer? That sets your timeline. 3, what's the power dynamic here? Who's the senior person? That changes how you approach them. And 4, and this is a big one, how important is it that these people have a good relationship in the future? That helps you decide between harmony and a quick fix. This is where your so-called people skills are actually your most powerful diagnostic tools. You have to be listening, and I mean really listening, not just to the words, but to the tone of voice. You're watching body language. These nonverbal cues are the smoke signals that tell you a small fire is starting long before it becomes a full-blown crisis. And of course, if you observe anything unethical or illegal, that's not a conflict to manage, that's a high-level problem you escalate immediately. So let's put it all together. You've done the work, you've interpreted the source of the conflict, you've pinpointed its stage in the team's life cycle, and you've analyzed the context of the situation. Now, and only now, are you ready to actually decide how to resolve it. You've got a whole toolkit of resolution techniques, and each one has a very different outcome. Collaborating, that's the gold standard. It's the only true win-win, where you find a solution that makes everyone happy. Compromising is interesting. It's often seen as a lose-lose, because everybody has to give something up, so nobody walks away totally satisfied. Then you've got other options like forcing your way or just withdrawing, but those always create a clear winner and a clear loser. And this, right here, this is the main point of this whole explainer. You can't just randomly pick a technique from that list and hope for the best. Your choice has to be driven by your interpretation. If the conflict is about schedules during the storming phase, well, collaborating on a new plan is probably your best bet. But if it's a tiny administrative issue between two powerful VPs who are short on time, maybe a quick compromise is all you need. The interpretation guides the action, every single time. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Now that you've seen the framework, ask yourself, are you just a conflict manager running around putting out fires? Or are you ready to become a conflict interpreter who truly understands why those fires start in the first place?